Benjamin, thank you for being here. It is so wonderful to meet you and an honor to be sharing the stage with you to talk about how arts and culture can help build the world that we want. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Excited.
Yeah, me too. I've had a chance to learn a little bit about your unique journey, your visionary process, and your genius to create art which inspires change. I'm really excited to have our audience discover that for themselves, and what makes your work so powerful. I'm disappointed that our schedules don't allow us to be there in person because I think it would have been great for everyone to experience your energy and your passion. But, unfortunately, we're not able to be there. Now, Benjamin,
Like,
well, you and I come from different worlds. I think we share a common belief in the importance of arts and culture to become a driving force for raising awareness, bridging divides, and inspiring community engagement and connection. I have been a passionate champion of the arts for the past 2 decades, not as an artist like you, but as a patron, a donor, an advocate, and board member, serving as chair of the McMichael Canadian Art Collection for a number of years. That's where the Group of Seven and the Art of Canada is housed, and serving on the Canadian Arts Summit Steering Committee that organizes the convention and convening of the largest arts and cultural organizations in the country. I'm currently chair of Why Not Theatre based in Toronto. For those in the audience that may not be familiar with Why Not, for the past 20 years, it has been challenging the status quo of what stories are told, who gets to tell them, and most importantly, who they are for. The latest production, of which you're seeing some pictures here on screen, it's one of the largest shows to come out of Canada in a very long time. Over 40 artists and arts workers are part of the team that tell this ancient story of the Mahabharata in a very contemporary and relevant way. In fact, the show just finished a sellout run last week at the Lincoln Center in New York after touring across Canada, Australia, and the Barbican Centre in London. And last week, their work was recognized with 5 Dora Awards and 3 Toronto Theatre Critic Awards. What's really interesting about them is they've been working tirelessly on large-scale systems change in many of the ways that you have, to find ways to make the lives of artists better, believing deeply in the idea that a truly healthy society has healthy artists at its core. Now, I want to give you one example of the work they've been doing. They've been exploring activating underutilized spaces in various city centers and turning them into temporary rehearsal halls, which are free to artists. Benjamin, like you, they're using their global stage to move hearts and minds through performance, storytelling, and collaboration. But I'm going to tell you why I'm really here is because I'm sort of at that nexus of traditional finance, impact investing, arts and culture, and systems change. I spent more than 25 years in finance and leadership roles with some of the most successful and well-known businesses, families, and philanthropists in Canada and globally. As founder and CEO of Rally Assets, we are Canada's leading impact investment firm whose purpose is to shift capital systems to deliver sustainability, equity, and justice for all. And through our Realize Fund, we are one of 3 managers selected to manage the Government of Canada's $400 million commitment to social finance across the country. One of the things we've been working on with Metcalf Foundation and others is exploring the use of impact investing as an additional source of capital to strengthen the arts and culture sector, which has traditionally relied, as you know, mostly on grants from public funders and some earned revenue like ticket sales. And what we're hoping is that this will allow arts organizations to turn their gaze to longer term opportunities, enable risk taking and investment in innovation, capacity building, and break that cycle that we often see in our cultural and artistic space of precarity and move towards resilience. I think that's what makes this conversation really so relevant for both the funders, the impact investors, and the organizations at ImpactFest who see the benefit and want to participate in supporting a strong and resilient art sector. So that's enough about me. I want to turn it to you. Let me turn to you and ask you to share your story as an environmental artist, an activist, and part of the World Economic Forum Young Global Leaders Class of 2025. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, your art monuments? How are you making a positive impact and driving change through the work that you do?
For sure. Thank you for that. So my name is Benjamin Von Wong. I'm an artist. I'm an activist, also a Canadian, although I'm currently in New York City. I actually studied hard rock mining engineering and somehow along the way transitioned into becoming a photographer. And today I create these large scale art installations where I try my best to engage communities in order to create these larger than life pieces. So the themes that I generally tend to play with are all environmental in nature, but these are all sculptural pieces that we actually build together with the help of local communities, nonprofits, and groups and organizations. And from there, figure out how to create a moment in time that is capable of inviting people into the conversation, even if this isn't something that you care about. So I try to make boring things a little bit more interesting. In the past, I was really focused on using the power of fiction to tell the truth. Something that you probably play with too within your work is like in these stories, we find our humanity. In these stories of how do we build art, we actually talk about what it looks like to come together uh, around a shared cause, a shared mission in order to be heard. And for me, over time, I've shifted slowly from photography into larger scale physical art installations that I then try to intersect with moments in history where the world is coming together to negotiate what is happening. My last project that I did was at the UN Biodiversity Conference. It was a 2.5-story tall biodiversity Jenga tower. I think we have a video of that we can throw up on screen. That we actually created to welcome the 24,000 delegates from 193 different countries. We had 13 different layers, 33 different ecosystems represented here. Also that we could talk about how there was this fragile balance between all these different ecosystems that rely upon one another, and we're entering a point where we're hitting these tipping points. And so, we not only go and create the physical art piece that everyone can experience at COP16 and have this global symbol that they can all rally behind, but we also go and try to tell the stories of who are the people that are impacted by visiting the local communities and talking to them and trying to translate what is something that is often very abstract into some way to speak to people's hearts and minds. And so I think that's kind of maybe the place where both of our worlds collide, is like you can know something, you can say, hey, the world is broken and we need more justice, we need more equity, but like how do you feel it? How do you get people to shift their understanding of it in much more of a heart-centered way rather than a cerebral way? And of course, I think one of the big challenges is always like, oh, how do we measure that, right? We're in a conference of impact investors. This is all about like investments, return on investments. At least for me, it's something that I kind of struggle with. I build these pieces, I put it out into the world. It serves the role of public art where everyone, regardless if you're a for-profit, nonprofit, government organization, like it doesn't matter if you paid for it, you get the chance to use it, to activate around it, to communicate with it. And what is the impact of that? I don't really know. I'm actually kind of curious to hear from you, like how these two worlds blend together when you think about changing hearts and minds and the impact investing world.
Benjamin, great question. I think the way that I see it is that what you do and the work of other artists do is actually create a safe space to actually have the start of conversations. And in those conversations, by actually being heartfelt and resonating from an emotional standpoint, we actually avoid the very divisive and polarizing conversation, and we stop retreating into our own identities and what we stand for, and are able to actually experience something. And through that sharing, we're able to touch another person who's also had a different experience, but also is moved by the work that you do, or by the work that the folks at Why Not do. And so it creates that aperture, that openness, that ability to actually engage to begin with in a conversation that says, how did you experience that and what touched you about that? And maybe by doing that, we start to think about, where are we actually connected? Where do we actually, feel, experience, sense something that's common, as opposed to in the language that can become very difficult, or in the very, open or confrontational approach we might take to difficult conversations about environment, for example.
Yeah, I love that. I like to say that like one of the major differences between art and marketing is like marketing is trying to fight for the biggest slice of one pie, whereas art is sort of like an invitation for everyone to interpret it however they see fit, and then they get to adapt that to their theories of change or their messaging. And so in some ways, what we're doing is trying to invite as many people around the campfire as possible to have these very, very important conversations. And it's certainly something that I try to do when I build these projects. It's like, how do you create a platform for new conversations to emerge? How do we use the power of curiosity to draw people in rather than telling them what to believe and what to think? And it's something that's like, we all know it's important, We all feel it, we all experience it, and yet you still have to go through this opportunity of actually like trying to convince people otherwise. Yeah.
Benjamin, let me maybe turn a question back to you. As I see and learn about your work, community building is such a core part of that. How do you engage in that, or how do you envision that being such a salient element of what you do?
Yeah, this all started because I'm an individual artist. I don't have a big company behind me. I don't have any institutional backing, and so I'm just like a solo dude showing up, cold emailing my way into UN conferences to try to bring something to life. And I then have to figure out how to fundraise for it, and then actually build the team, and then build the project. And so there's like two parts to it. There's the part where like it is so much more expensive to import an entire team of talent and materials and stuff and just ship it across the world. But it's also just so much less interesting when we have so much local talent wherever we happen to be, local communities, local individuals, where you get to invite them and say, hey, so if we take the UN Biodiversity Conference, for example, hey, this is the biggest conference ever to hit the city of Cali, Colombia. Why don't we reach out to students and have them co-create the creatures that they want to see living inside of these ecosystems? Why don't we work with some local botanists in order to create these ecosystems? Why don't we actually work with a local fabrication shop who are employing people within the sector themselves and creating these jobs so that they can also feel represented? And so now when you're telling the story, this isn't like Ben the artist creating a project. It was like Ben the artist landing here and engaging the hands of the entire community, because we all care about the same thing, because we all live on the same planet, right? And at the end of the day, we're not just building this one art installation, we're building this art installation and then we're donating it to a local community. And so at the end of the COP16 conference, which was like 2 weeks long, we ended up donating this to the botanical gardens of Cali, and now they've built a bunch of educational programs around it. And every year there's like 100,000 people that are now passing through who get to say, hey, this was something really important that happened, and it wasn't just this moment in time. This is an ongoing thing that we're going to continue working towards, fighting for, and championing. And so I think like the importance of engaging community just makes projects so much better. It's not just about the output, especially in a generation where we look at like, oh, you can create any number of magical things using AI, but like what makes it unique? It is the human touch behind it. It is the people that we engage along the way in the co-creative process. And that's what I think people want to also feel and see and buy, especially as technology becomes more and more ubiquitous. We want to know who are the people, who are the souls that are impacted along the way.
Yeah, no, you're so right. Ben, I know we're short on time, but I want to just maybe reflect on what you've talked about and what you've shared. And I know that certain words come to my mind as I think about that. I think about being innovative. I think about the work you do being inspiring, impactful, striking, and fundamentally transformational. And I love the fact that as we learn about the work, we're not really learning just about the creation of a single piece. We're learning about the intentions of the creator, and we're learning about the aspects of how it's a co-curation process that you actually embody and embrace. So you've shown it can be collaborative, you can build community, and you've also shown the purpose of the work, as you've outlined, is action-oriented as opposed to be experienced passively. And so I think what this does and what your example does is really demonstrate really, really well that the stories we tell through art really sow the seeds of possibility, as I said, of richer conversations, shared understanding, connected communities, and a collective commitment to mobilizing a deeper relationship with this earth, and as you defined it, the souls that we share it with. And as Canadians, this is our moment to lead. This is our moment to take that initiative. And I think together, leading as Canadians, we can have impact and build the world we want and the world we need for generations to come. So I just want to thank you so much for this really exciting and engaging conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your work too. It's really, really amazing to see how there are an infinite number of ways that we can use arts to address the crises of our time.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.